For those that are just now joining us, you have ice condensation clouds that normally form above 20,000 feet when jet aircraft go through the right type of cloud formations. It just forms clouds, ice crystals. But starting in the mid-90s, suddenly we noticed clouds at only a few thousand feet, trails that would expand and turn into cloud banks. And then planes right next to them wouldn't leave it. And now people have done the deep research. We have active climate stabilization, particle physics-based approaches to prevention of climate change. A Nobel Prize was won a decade ago plus in this. This is the National Academy of Engineering Symposium, Washington, D.C., April 18, 2002. The Council on Foreign Relations, that openly is calling for world government and globalism, has come out and admitted in a whole bunch of papers they've put out. Council on Foreign Relations Geoengineering Workshop on Unilateral Planetary Scale Geoengineering or Terraforming. There is that article. We're going to put all these up on screen as we go through the show today with our guest. And then Barack Obama's head science advisor, in his first interview since being approved a month ago, tells the Associated Press, London Guardian, and others in a press conference, I just want you to know we may have to start geoengineering with aircraft spraying the skies to protect us from global warming. Now, something is going on, and a lot of newscasters have done studies. They've had scientists look at it. There's more than one program going on. There's low-altitude spraying, high-altitude. You'll see articles in California where they spray pesticides on the town for a moth, or Austin, Texas, or they spray bacteria on every town and city in Oklahoma with a bacteria that kills mammals and causes spontaneous abortions. And then they just calmly announce, so there's all this stuff going on. And if you go to CaliforniaSkywatch.com, it's one of the best, most well-researched interview scientists, virologists, the list goes on and on. Rosalind Peterson, we're going to have her on. We've had her on many times before, but I want to have her on next week again. An hour today is not enough. Rosalind Peterson is a California president and co-founder of the Agriculture Defense Coalition. The ADC was founded in 2006 to protect agriculture crop production from uncontrolled experimental weather modification programs, atmospheric heating and testing programs, and oceanic and atmospheric experimental geoengineering programs. And the issue is, once you don't call it chemtrails, and you actually go look and use their terms, it's all over every major university out there, literally. They're spraying everywhere. They admit it. And NASA admits they're doing it, and the CFR is announcing it, and the president's people are announcing it. But then you tell the public, and they say it doesn't exist. Like, here's the Council on Foreign Relations, International Institutions and Global Governance Program, World Order 21st Century, May 1st, 2008, where they call for global government. I have here today the International Bank of Settlements documents from 2006, where they said they were engineering the collapse for 2009 to bring in the new world order. I mean, that's how this is piling up, where it's just everywhere. Like, where is that? I had that in my stack, and then Aaron ran off with it, and he's now on an airplane. Anyways, let's go ahead and go to Rosalind Peterson. Rosalind, start at the beginning, what we know, the documented stuff that's on record of what's happening. Good to have you here with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show today. There's any number of programs. NASA and the U.S. Air Force are conducting atmospheric heating and testing programs, and they're using the space shuttle and rockets to send up canisters with toxic chemicals like barium and trimethyl aluminum, strontium, lithium, sulfur hexafluoride, SF6, and other chemicals, and then they superheat these canisters and conduct atmospheric and ionospheric heating and testing programs. Then you've got weather modification programs ongoing across the United States. There's more than 60 listed by the U.S. Department of Commerce. And right now, our weather can be modified without our consent. They can use any chemicals and any experiments that they want. A private individual, a corporation, a state, a city, a county, the military, federal government, anyone can modify your weather at any time. They don't have to have any, there is no public oversight. There is no prior public notification, except in a few small counties in some states. And these programs are currently ongoing and growing exponentially. And now Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison of Texas has just introduced U.S. Senate Bill 601 to continue to allow anyone and everyone to mitigate and modify the weather, and they don't set up any government oversight, no prior public notification. There's nothing in this bill. Then you add these persistent jet contrails that turn into white haze, cirrus clouds, man-made clouds that NASA studies show exacerbate global warming. They show that they change our climate, and they're showing that they negatively impact natural resources.
That was the point I was going to make. I've had top climatologists on. I remember like 4 years ago and then 7 years ago, NASA showed their own satellite photos of the whole U.S. and Europe covered with the contrails, which are really chemtrails, as they didn't do this until this program started. This huge black op project that's got to be in the hundreds of billions now. And they admitted that these clouds were going to heat the Earth. So I think they're trying to really screw stuff up so they can panic people into accepting the global warming tax. Because now they come out and have, in kids' textbooks, as you mentioned, as folks have covered, we're trying to stop the global warming. And now the president's people are saying that when the science shows that this stuff causes UV to go through the clouds and then basically trap the heat under them, that it's clear skies like the desert at night that let the heat go off-world.
Yes, that's correct. And contrails, too, are made up of water vapor and, of course, jet fuel emissions and other toxics. But now they're saying that this water vapor is a greenhouse gas, and they say it exacerbates global warming. And yet, in no legislation that I can find anywhere at any level, state or federal, do they talk about remedying the problem or solving it. They're starting now to talk about, well, we can put up more particulates into the atmosphere and space mirrors. There's all kinds of geoengineering projects in order to cool us down. But they don't realize that the programs we have ongoing are what are exacerbating this problem.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I mean, then there's just the whole issue of how this illustrates for people what the shadow government, which they now admit's in total control under the National Security Council, is doing. And now the CFR says we need global treaties for global, let me give their exact quote here, for unilateral, that means complete, planetary scale geoengineering. So, and then you have the issue of them denying any of this is going on as the public says, what in the world is going on here? 15 years ago, these trails disappeared. Now they never leave. They turn into whole cloud banks. And then, so I mean, speak to that specifically, how all the scientific data admits they're doing this, but then when we complain, they say, we don't know what you're talking about.
Well, part of it is, let me go through three things here. First of all, the first time that in Northern California that we saw contrails start to persist, it looks like from the earliest photographs and records we have was around 1989. And from that time forward, beginning in the late 1980s, scientists began to talk about geoengineering. The word was kind of hidden from view, and it started to spring up at universities and special courses and things, but it wasn't talked about. But some money began to filter into a whole group of scientists who started to work on, as part of their curriculum at, in other words, Stanford University and other areas, University of Irvine, and some government agencies began to work on these type of programs, this geoengineering type program.
Let me stop you. It was interviewing Ben Livingston, the father of weather weapons, confirmed. It was declassified. We interviewed him first. It was on Fox, CNN, you name it. It was Stanford Research Institute from 1960 to 67 that did the study with him, the meteorologist, and certified weather weapons, creation of hurricanes, typhoons, floods, things like that, and that they had certified they could control the weather by 1967. And you just mentioned this stuff started, as far as we can tell, is in California with Stanford.
It could be. And so what's happened since that time? We've been engaged since the 40s in hurricane modification, weather modification, lots of programs.
Yes.
That most of the public is unaware. And we were modifying the weather in Vietnam. So that brought us the NMOD treaty.